unpacking. Thank you.
In this crazy world, it's so hard to unwind. So I'm taking time just for me. Gonna find my peace, let my soul be free. In the quiet moments, that's where I'll find a little room to breathe and leave it all behind. Give me room to breathe, I need some time to heal my heart, to clear my mind. Gonna love myself, yeah, I believe in the power of me. Just give me room to breathe.
Great new day to all my self-care family and friends. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I'm your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so happy that you've made space to be here with us today. Now, before we get started, if you're feeling the vibes, go ahead and tap the screen, show us some love by liking, commenting, but most importantly, I need everybody to share this out with someone who may need a little healing energy today. And if this is your first time here, or you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that follow button. Subscribe to our channel so that way you're always tapped in when a new episode drops. I also want to invite you to check out our digital home at the selfcareclub.org. That is your one-stop shop for all things self-care. There you will find affirmative apparel, motivational merch, and a ton of free resources to help remind you that you are supported every step of the way. Just know that you don't have to do this alone. We are healing in community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So today I encourage you to give yourself permission to pause, to reflect. I want you to make space for peace, for growth, but most importantly for you. And again, if anything in this episode hits home, be sure to drop some green hearts in the chat. That is our community's way of saying I am healing, I am growing, and I am showing up for me. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. I want to start things off with our intentional breath today. I want everybody to take one deep breath with me. In through your nose. Exhale from your mouth. That felt kind of good. Let's do it again, y'all. Inhale. Exhale. Now listen, as y'all continue to breathe, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get things started because I think that today's question that I have for you is simple, but I'm hoping that it stretches you. And I'm not talking about the surface stretch, not that cute stretch. I'm talking about the kind that makes you sit up a little bit straighter, the kind that makes you pause before you answer, right? You say you want peace. I mean, you post about peace. You pray for peace. You talk about protecting your peace. You say you're done with the drama. You say you're tired of the chaos. You say you just want calm. So here's the real question that I have for you. Are you practicing the discipline that peace requires? Are you practicing the discipline that peace requires? Because peace isn't just a desire. Peace is a lifestyle. Elevated Awakenings coach, welcome in. I think I missed somebody else coming in. Serenic Dreams, welcome in. So again, peace isn't just, something that shows up because you asked for it. It shows up because you've built space for it, right? You made room for it. And building space for peace means that you have to remove what disrupts it. That means you have to add discipline to your habits. And when I say discipline in your habits, I mean discipline in your relationships, discipline in your mouth, discipline in your spending, discipline in your time. Grand Rising's beautiful. Welcome in, Karen. Discipline in your emotional reactions. See, peace is not passive. It is protected, right? And protection requires consistency. It's going to require that you say, I'm not doing that anymore, and actually mean it. Welcome, NCC. Thank you so much for the gifts, guys. It requires you to choose what's healthy, even when what's unhealthy feels familiar. It requires you to walk away, even when your ego wants to win. It requires you to sit still when your impulses want to react. Thank you, guys. Y'all showing out today. Thank you. You are blessed and you are loved as well, beautiful. So again, guys, that's discipline, right? When, understanding that peace requires you to sit still when your impulses want to react. And I'm not asking, this question to judge. In this space, we listen and we don't judge, right? I'm asking because I had to ask myself the same thing recently. I was sitting here reflecting and I was like, okay, do I really want peace or do I just want relief? Because relief is temporary. Peace is structured. So I think that a lot of times we're asking for peace, but what we want in that moment is just relief. We need a break from it. We're overstimulated. We're overwhelmed. Right? But we have to understand that relief reacts. Peace responds. Thank you so much, CC. Relief numbs, but peace regulates. Relief avoids, but peace aligns. So today we're not just talking about wanting peace. We're talking about participating in peace. Because peace without discipline is merely a wish. And around here, we don't just wish. We build, right? We build. Thank you so much. So again, everybody wants peace until it costs them something. Let's be honest. Everybody wants peace until peace requires a sacrifice. We love the language of peace. We love the aesthetic of peace, right? The soft music, the morning routines, the boundary quotes, the affirmations, the whole protector energy captions, right? We love that. We're here for all of that. But peace isn't just a vibe. It is a decision that will cost you access. So peace comes with a price. And when I say that it comes with a price, it will cost you certain conversations. It will cost you certain environments. Thank you. Certain friendships, certain relationships, certain habits. And you know what? And sometimes peace will even cost you certain versions of yourself. And that's where most people hesitate. Because we want peace, but we also don't want to lose what's familiar. Because that familiar chaos still feels comfortable. Remember yesterday we talked about being in that hallway, right? In that threshold of leaving, something toxic, but not yet having something else to go into. So we were just kind of sitting in the hall, right? Familiar chaos can still feel comfortable. So that relationship may be draining, but that relationship is predictable. Absolutely. In the waiting room. That job might stress you out, but it still pay the bills. That friend may cost your boundaries, but they've been here forever. That habit that you got might numb you, but at least it's distracting you. It's keeping some noise in the room, right? But we have to understand that peace disrupts everything that you've normalized. And that disruption feels like a loss at first. And again, nobody talks about that part. Avita, welcome in. Welcome back. Nobody talks about that part. Nobody talks about how choosing peace can feel lonely. It can feel quiet. It can feel like you're the only person in the room that has changed. Because when you choose peace, you stop participating in patterns that once bonded you to people, right? Y'all know we talk about those trauma bonds. Suddenly, the thing that used to light you up about a person, it just don't work no more, right? You don't gossip anymore. You don't argue for sport. No longer are you interested in being the clapback queen, right? You don't chase validation. You don't overextend yourself just to feel needed. And when you stop playing those roles, some people get uncomfortable. But the truth is, peace is not compatible with performance. So if you're performing to be accepted, if you're shrinking to be liked, if you're reacting to be heard, or if you're overworking to be valued, you're not at peace. I'm sorry to bust your bubble. What you are is exhausted. Elevated Awakenings Butterfly, welcome in. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? The comment that I'm looking at, guys, says, I think that I'm moving to a different community. This is for my betterment. It's going to be hard at first, but boundaries are necessary. Absolutely. It's like when you finally realize that you are exhausted, when you finally realize that you're performing to keep up with folks, or you're doing the most but receiving the least, something has to shift. Right? Something has to shift. Peace requires that you let go of the need to prove. No fear, no doubt. Welcome in, bro. Peace requires you to let go of the need to prove. And see, proving feels like productive. Peace feels still. And stillness can feel like you're doing nothing, but in reality, you're doing the most powerful thing. You're not adding fuel. You're not escalating. You're not explaining yourself in circles. You're not defending your boundaries. You're not responding to the bait, right? That's restraint. That's discipline. And discipline feels uncomfortable in the beginning because you're breaking muscle memory. You're no longer walking around on autopilot. You're unlearning reactions, unlearning that urgency. You're unlearning the addiction to intensity. See, some of us are not addicted to chaos. We're addicted to the stimulation, right? And so that makes peace feel slow and chaos feels alive. But alive and anxious are not the same thing. Peace will cost you your addiction to adrenaline. It will cost you your need to be right. It will cost you your habit of saying yes when your body is screaming no. Those of you who follow on TikTok, y'all see I made that post yesterday about how I choose to protect my peace on Wednesdays. And I could have simply just answered the people who were disrupting my peace. But I thought, no, this is a perfect transparency moment to share that I value my peace and this is how I protect it. Because again, you have to set boundaries, right? And, when we don't choose peace, a lot of times it's because people don't want to pay that price, right? They don't want people to judge them or people to criticize them. We are here Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. They don't want people to judge them, or, a lot of us just simply don't want to be misunderstood. So we delay our healing, right? I know that's right, sis. She said, I don't care. So the real question that I have for you guys is, are you willing to lose what disrupts you in order to gain what steadies you? Are you willing to lose what disrupts you in order to gain what steadies you? Because peace doesn't just remove noise, it removes participation. And when you stop participating in the chaos, you start seeing clearly. And clarity is when the real healing begins. Thank you so much for being here, beautiful. I see you. This is a really great episode to have as your background. So yeah, thank you. So again, peace is a practice. It's not a personality trait. Okay? Some people think that peace is something that you either have or you don't. Like a personality trait. Right? We say it all the time. Oh, she's so calm. He just unbothered. Right? That's their energy. But no, that's practice. Nobody wakes up regulated, by accident. Peace is trained. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't understand. How are you so calm? How are you so peaceful? Because I done been through hell. I done did the work. Peace is trained. And when I say it's trained in the small moments that nobody sees. It's trained when you pause instead of popping off. It's trained when you sit with the discomfort instead of rushing to escape from it. It's trained when you choose not to match somebody else's chaos. Peace isn't about being naturally soft. It's about being intentionally steady. But steady requires consistency. Steady requires consistency. So let's talk about what peace is, right? Peace is going to bed when your body is tired instead of scrolling social media for validation. I said what I said. You got to put your phone down. Queen B, welcome in, beautiful. Peace is not checking their page just to see. You left a relationship. If y'all don't get off that man's social media and let him live. Peace is not rehearsing arguments in your head. They did what they did. You said what you said. It is what it is. Let it go. Peace is drinking water when your nervous system is dysregulated. Peace is turning your phone on do not disturb and then not being disrupted. Peace is sticking to your budget. This gonna step on somebody's toes. Peace is not only making the appointment for your therapist or your life coach, but keeping the appointment. Peace is journaling instead of texting people. See, none of those things are dramatic, right? They are disciplined. A lot of times people, say that peace is boring, right? It's repetitive, it's quiet, it's structured. And that's why some people struggle with it, because chaos feels exciting. She said all that. Chaos has spikes, right? Yes, I am. Peace has rhythm. Chaos is loud. Peace is grounded. And so if you grew up in noise, right? If you grew up in a chaotic environment, then peace can feel very unfamiliar to you at first. In fact, your nervous system might resist it. You might say that you want calm, but subconsciously crave intensity because that's what you're used to. Y'all, that's me, right? So I grew up in chaos and it was normal, right? I mean, what black household ain't chaotic? We all go through some things, right? But I'm the type of person where I really crave peace. So in my real life, my day-to-day life, I want peace. I want calm. I don't want drama. So much so that I don't even allow people to really call me and spill the tea. I don't even like tea. So I'm not going to sip from that, right? I don't get in the middle of the he say, she say. I don't know them people. Right? So for me, the way I balance it is that my books, right? I love to read some real dramatic, just books that got all the drama that I don't want in my life. So that is how I find my balance. I can stay out of everybody else's mess. I ain't got to worry about who's sleeping with who doing this, who doing that, because baby, I got it in my books. So that's my guilty pleasure. That is how I make sure I stay balanced. And as I read those books, I'm like, I would never want that in my life. Right? I pray that that energy never finds me. So even if you grew up in the chaos, you can figure out, okay, how do I balance this out? Because I no longer want this energy. I don't want this toxicity in my life, but I still like the toxicity, right? So for some people, it's watching reality TV, although you got to be careful because it'll seep into your mindset and it'll start to mess up your life. But again, you have to find something to balance you out. Exactly. You have to find something. Because again, if you're used to the chaos, a lot of times you mistake peace for nothing happening. But peace is not nothing. Peace is stability. It's knowing what to expect from yourself. It's knowing that you won't betray your own boundaries. Excuse me. It's knowing that you won't undo your progress for a temporary emotion. Yes, what has most access to the mind controls the mind. So that's why we say that you have to find the balance, Bruce. Because if you fully submit yourself into one area, then you become consumed by it. That's why like a lot of content creators, a lot of people who are on social media, whether you're the creator or you're the viewer, right? Some people get so wrapped up in it that it consumes them. It's like a drug. You know what I mean? And so you have to be careful what you feed yourself. And we're talking deeper than what you're putting in your mouth and digesting. What you feed your brain. What are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you reading? I wouldn't be able to read the books that I read if my cup wasn't already overflowing with all of the things that I actually need. See, the book is what I desire. That is the entertainment that I desire. Not the lifestyle that I want to live. Not the identity that I want to take on. Not the person that I want to be or become or be with. So I'm very careful. I'm very intentional about what I eat. I'm very intentional about what I feed myself. Period. Me on TV, y'all. But peace is integrity with yourself. Okay? And that is something that is built daily. You don't become peaceful just because you had a good week. You become peaceful because you build consistent habits that support your nervous system, your boundaries, your future. You cannot pray for peace and practice inconsistency. It does not work. You cannot ask for calm and then feed the chaos. You can't say you're healing and then keep rehearsing old reactions. Peace requires something. It requires alignment between what you say and what you repeatedly do. And no, it's not about being perfect. It's simply about being aware, right? When you notice that you're spiraling, you pause. When you notice that you're triggered, you breathe. Sis said, stop gut punching me this morning. I mean, I'm just saying. That's peace. It's when you notice that you're tempted to abandon yourself, so you choose differently. Not only is that peace, that is practice, right? Peace is not an arrival point. Peace is maintenance. And maintenance is not glamorous. It's daily check-ins, course corrections, small adjustments. It's saying that didn't align with who I'm becoming. Let me reset for a second. Hold on. Let me calm down. Let me get myself together. See, peace isn't fragile when it's practiced. It becomes stable. And when peace becomes stable, your life becomes steady. And when things are steady, everything changes. So we have to understand that discipline isn't punishment. It is protection. I think a lot of us have a strained relationship with the word discipline because for many of us, discipline was harsh, right? It was loud. It was shaming. It was something done to us, not chosen for us. So when we hear the word discipline, it feels a little restrictive. Thank you so much, the gospel. Welcome in. Right? The word discipline feels restrictive. It feels like we're losing freedom. But grown, healed discipline, that is protection. Right? It's not punishment. It is prevention. Discipline says that I've learned from that. We're not repeating that cycle. We're not going back to what almost broke us. And that's not harsh. That's wise. Protection doesn't mean that you're scared. It means that you're aware. And awareness changes how you move forward. See, when you're disciplined, you don't answer every phone call. You don't entertain every option. You don't chase opportunity. You don't respond to every trigger. And it's not because you're cold. It's because you're clear. Right? You start to see things differently. Discipline protects your energy. And not only does it protect your energy, it protects your time. It protects your healing. And let's go ahead and talk about healing for a second. Y'all know I'm all for healing. Healing makes you softer, but it also makes you sharper. And when I say sharper, I'm talking about the fact that you see patterns quicker. Thank you so much. You recognize red flags faster. You feel misalignment in your body sooner. Yes, being disciplined can break those generational curses. Discipline is what keeps you from overriding those signals. And without discipline, you actually gaslight yourself. Right? If you lack discipline, you're probably constantly overreacting. Maybe, you're saying things like, it's not that big of a deal. Maybe I'm just being sensitive. With discipline, you say, my peace felt disrupted, and that's enough for me. Right? That's enough information. I know everything I need to know about this situation. That's protection. Discipline is what keeps you from self-abandonment. It stops you from saying yes when you mean no. It stops you from laughing at the jokes that disrespect you. It stops you from staying silent when something feels off. From overextending to prove your worth. Discipline says, I don't have to earn basic respect. It says, if it costs me my peace, it's too damn expensive. Discipline protects the version of you that you work so hard to heal. You didn't go to therapy, journal through those tears, pray through confusion, rebuild confidence just to let one moment of impulse undo your progress. That's why discipline matters. Not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're trying to be consistent. Because we know that consistency builds safety. And safety within yourself, when you're disciplined, you start to trust yourself. You start to believe in yourself again. You begin to trust that you won't spiral. You trust that you won't chase closure that's already given. You trust that it won't reopen wounds that you've worked so hard to close. And that trust is the internal peace. So no, discipline isn't punishment. It's not depriving you of yourself. It's about deciding my future self deserves better than my old patterns. And that kind of protection, that's self-love in action. Not the soft quote on the t-shirt version, but the lived, embodied, boundary held version. That discipline sustains peace. But peace must have accountability. Thank you so much, The Gospel Soldier. I appreciate you for being here, and I hope and pray that you have an amazing day on purpose. Accountability is what I would like to say is discipline in disguise. Thank you so much. See, accountability doesn't feel cute. Everybody want to be accountable, or I'm sorry, everybody want to. What am I trying to say here? Everybody want to talk about it until it's time for them to show up and apologize and hold themselves accountable, right? Accountability doesn't come with applause. It doesn't trend. It doesn't get reposted with soft music in the background. Accountability just feels like interruption, right? It interrupts your excuses. It interrupts your comfort. It interrupts the story that you were about to tell yourself. And that's why we resist it, right? But we have to understand that accountability isn't about criticism. It's about clarity. It's that quiet voice inside of you that says, you knew better. Not in a shaming way, but more so in a maturing way. And she said, just blame me. Listen, Karen, I used to be like that just because I wanted peace. And so when I would be like going back and forth with somebody, I used to be like, never mind, blame it on me. What Chrisette tell us? Blame it on me, say it's my fault. As long as this is over, I don't care. So I used to be that person. And know that I wasn't in the wrong, but I would take all the blame just for it to be over. But I am no longer that person. I am not taking accountability for actions that are not mine. I am also not sticking around to hold you accountable. My way of holding you accountable is removing myself, right? I'm going to show you better than I could tell you now. See, accountability says, you said you want peace, so why are you entertaining chaos? You said that we're done, so why are you still responding? You said that you were healing, so why are you still rehearsing old behaviors? And we have to understand that that voice that you hear is not against you. It is aligning with your growth. But again, here's the truth that we don't always want to admit. We love accountability when it's about other people. We always say they need to be held accountable. They need to do the work. They need to change. But what about self-accountability? What about them three fingers pointing back at you? See, that's that grown man, that grown woman work right there. That's the moment where you start to look at yourself and say, you know what? I participated in that. I entertained that. I tolerated that. Yep, ignored that red flag. Sat here too long, stayed too long, showed up too many times. You start to recognize, damn, I crossed my own boundary. While I'm trying to hold him accountable, let me talk about all the boundaries of my own that I crossed. And it's not to beat yourself up, right? It is about breaking the pattern. Because if you don't take accountability, you stay in victim mode. And let me be clear. Harm is real. Pain is real. Betrayal is real. But accountability isn't about blaming yourself for what somebody else did. It's about owning how you move going forward. You cannot control who disappoints you, but you can control whether you keep giving them access to disappoint you time and time again. You cannot control whether somebody misunderstands you, but you can control whether you keep giving them access to you, right? You can control whether you keep over-explaining yourself. You may not be able to control who disrespects you, but you can control whether you tolerate it twice. See, when people show you who they are, you have to believe them. Stop dealing with people based upon the potential. So, yeah, you can't control who shows up and disrespects you, but you can control whether you allow them to disrespect you repeatedly. That is accountability. And accountability requires discipline. Because discipline says we don't repeat lessons. I already took that class. I'm not taking that class again. I don't need that lesson repeated. It says that shit hurt me last time. So I'm not signing up for that again. Accountability keeps you from romanticizing the past. It keeps you grounded in the truth. It keeps you from rewriting history to make something toxic look tolerable. And truth protects peace. Right? So we're going to get on our grown man, grown woman healing, y'all. Truth, when they say like truth will set you free, truth protects your peace. So accountability is uncomfortable because it removes your ability to blame. It says that situation hurt, but what am I going to do differently? It says, yeah, that person failed me, but am I going to fail myself too by allowing them to keep showing up and doing it? And see, that's not harsh. In fact, if you think about it, it's pretty empowering. Because when you take accountability, you take your control back. You stop waiting for somebody else to change so you can feel better. You stop waiting for an apology to move forward. You stop waiting for closure to create boundaries. You just move. You adjust. You choose. And discipline is what keeps you consistent with that choice. Accountability, contrary to what society tries to tell us, is not self-attack. It is self-leadership. It is saying, I'm responsible for protecting the life I say I want. And when you embrace accountability, you stop living reactively and you start living intentionally. And y'all, that intentional living, that's where peace becomes sustainable, not seasonal. I think that a lot of us only know seasonal peace, right? Y'all out here accepting peace like the tide rolling in and out. Make your peace sustainable, not seasonal. And I also want to talk about emotional regulation. I think that is something that I hear repeatedly now. Like, emotional regulation is trending. Okay. But I don't think that people are talking enough about the discipline of emotional regulation. So I want to take this opportunity to, I think, clear something up. Emotional regulation is not emotional suppression. You are not called to be numb. You are not called to be robotic. You are not called to not care. You're called to be steady. And steady takes discipline. Peace requires you to feel every single emotion without letting those emotions drive the car. Because feelings, those emotions, those things that we feel, feelings are information, but they are not the instructions. Let me say that again, because I need to make sure that you get this. Thank you so much, Queen V. See you next time. Feelings Feelings are information, but they are not the instructions. Just because you feel triggered doesn't mean that you must react. Just because you feel hurt doesn't mean that you have to retaliate. Just because you feel abandoned doesn't mean that you must chase. Regulation says, I feel this and I'm going to respond, and I am not going to explode. That's discipline. And I mean, think about it. Reacting is easy. Clapping back is easy. Sending the long paragraph is easy. Posting, subliminally subtweets and all those things, that's easy. You can do that all day. Cutting somebody off dramatically, that's easy. Right? Outing them, putting the receipts out there. That's easy. That's why it comes, like second nature to us. That's why it's just so quick to do, because it's easy. But sitting still, breathing, processing, choosing not to escalate, that ain't easy. That's mature, right? That's discipline. Peace requires you to slow your nervous system down. And so if you're somebody who grew up in chaos, your nervous system may be wired for speed. Like you have a need for speed, right? You may feel uncomfortable when things are just calm. You may interpret quiet as distance. You may confuse stability with boredom. So what do? You stir up something. You pick a fight. You overthink a tone. You assume the worst. You react before asking questions. And it's not because you're dramatic. It's because your body is used to survival mode. But discipline retrains survival mode. It teaches your body that we're safe now, right? It teaches you that we don't have to react to everything. It looks like pausing before replying. Cousin, is that you in the room? What's up, cousin? It looks like sleeping on big decisions. Taking a walk instead of sending a text. Saying, give me a moment, let me think about that. Choosing to revisit a conversation when you've calmed down. That pause, that pause right there, that's power. And peace lives in the pause. When you regulate, you break generational cycles. You stop passing down explosive reactions. You stop normalizing emotional volatility. You stop equating love with intensity. Regulation creates emotional safety for you and for others. And so, let's talk about the uncomfortable that comes with this. Some people say they want peace, but they're addicted to the emotional highs and lows. And what I'm talking about is that makeup to breakup cycle. The argument, then passion pattern. The chaos, then apology loop. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to let you cool off, and I'm going to apologize. And then we're going to get back to doing the same thing again, where I show up and I hurt you, and then I leave you alone so you can cool off, and then I half-ass apologize so we can get back to doing the same thing again. Right? For some people, that feels alive. But for people who are healing, that shit feels exhausting. See, peace is not dramatic. Peace is stable. And stability can feel a little unfamiliar if you've been conditioned to equate love with turbulence. So discipline is what becomes your anchor. When you feel yourself rising, you ground yourself. When you feel yourself spiraling, you slow down. When you feel the urge to prove, you choose silence. And I had shared with you guys last Wednesday, I started having like just a anxiety attack. Like I just became super overstimulated by a situation and started to have a panic attack. And I have not had one in years, right? So the moment I felt my heart rate change, the moment I noticed that my breathing changed, right? When I felt myself rising, I immediately had to ground myself. And it took a second for me, the life coach. It took a second for me to even have the words to name what was happening to me, but I knew what was happening to me. So I had to start by setting the mood for myself. I had to put some music on that calms me. I had to pick up the phone and talk to somebody who I knew that I could vent to, who would understand me, who would take up space for me, right? Not make me feel crazy, not laugh about it. Somebody who really, truly understood. So I knew I needed to use a lifeline and phone a friend. I knew I needed to focus on my breath because in a moment, I lost control of my breath. If you ever had a panic attack, you know what that is. So I had to breathe through it. So again, once you start your healing intentionally, when you feel yourself rising, you'll do things to ground yourself. If you find yourself spiraling, you recognize, I need to slow down. And sometimes for me, it could be right in the middle of a heated conversation. I find myself getting hot, then I go off, and then I'm like, you know what? Let me calm down. So that's when the power of that let them comes in, that let them theory. When you be like, you know what? Never mind. You right. Because see, I understand that just because they right, it doesn't make me wrong. So I'd be like, ooh, let me calm down. You got it. You got it, player. It's your world, boss. Right? When you feel rejected, you choose self-soothing over self-sabotage. And the thing I mentioned too, for people who feel the urge to prove, right? For my argumentative people, and I be telling y'all need to just go stir the greens and cook the corn, right? You choose silence. So people are like, well, how do you not, feel the need to defend yourself? Because I have no need to defend myself. I'm protected. I'm covered. I'm safe. What am I defending myself for? Because see, if the situation was a threat, I would have already removed myself. That's like if you're in a situation where there's a threat present. Let's say it's like an active shooter, whatever, right? And the door is right next to you and the door is open right next to you. And the active shooter is not facing you. They are somewhere else. Like, you know what I mean? They're in the proximity, but they wouldn't even see you if you slipped out the door. You gonna sit there and keep pleading for your life? Or you gonna slip out the door? So that's how I look at arguments and things like that with people. If this is truly a threat where I need to defend myself, yet I have the opportunity to remove myself, baby, I'm gone. The moment that I realize that my presence is not a gift, I am no longer present. I will check out. You can have all of this. Right? You can keep all of this. I don't need none of it. So that is how I resist the urge to prove myself to people. Instead, I just choose silence. When you feel rejected, you choose to return to center. Instead of sitting here, forcing yourself to be in a situation where now you have to sabotage yourself. Regulation doesn't mean that you don't feel deeply. It means that you feel deeply and choose wisely. And choosing wisely consistently That's discipline. And discipline in your emotions is what builds the trust in yourself, right? You trust that you won't blow up, your own peace. You trust that you won't sabotage your own healing. You trust that you won't let a moment undo months of growth. And so when you trust yourself emotionally, all of a sudden that peace becomes internal, not conditional. What's up, Ghost? Welcome in, bro. So once you start to value your peace, you're no longer dependent on who texts you, not dependent on what validates you or, who behaves perfectly. It suddenly becomes rooted and anchored and practiced. And emotional regulation is that daily discipline that keeps it steady. I think at this point, I'll also add in that there's something super powerful about learning how to say no. And when I'm talking about saying no, I'm talking about without a paragraph. No is a complete sentence, and it doesn't need to be explained. No, just that. No explanation, no performance, no softening it up so it's easier for somebody else to swallow. Just no. Asked and answered. And when they keep coming back trying to negotiate it, just no. Period. And I think that for some of us, that no is the hardest discipline of all, right? Because we are conditioned to be agreeable, to be accommodating, to be understanding, or to be the bigger person, to keep the peace, even if it's costing us our own. So when we say no, our nervous system starts to panic. We start thinking, what if they get mad? What if they leave? What if they misunderstand me? What if I look selfish, right? And that's when we start typing a paragraph. We start to say no because I gotta da-da-da-da-da, and I feel like da-da-da-da-da. We begin to over-explain. We justify. We water it down. We add in some apologies. We add a couple smiley faces, throw a couple gifts in there, add a maybe later, giving them false hope. And we start to attach loopholes to it. And before you know it, our boundary is blurred. We don't even recognize it anymore. But peace requires discipline of clarity, not cruelty. Josh Jen, welcome in, beautiful. Not cruelty, not attitude, not coldness, just clarity. No, I'm not available. No, that doesn't work for me. No, I'm not comfortable with that. No, I won't be able to commit to that. No, I lack the capacity for that. Just full stop. Discipline is resisting the urge to over-explain your worth. Because over-explaining is often a sign that you don't fully trust your own right to choose. See, when you over-explain, you're often you're often trying to control the other person's reaction. She said, no, leave me alone. Period. It's like suddenly you want them to understand. You want them to approve. You want them to not feel disappointed. But you have to understand that their reaction to your no is not your responsibility. You said you needed to hear this, India? I think we all did. Your responsibility is your alignment, not their reaction. Peace requires you to release the need to manage how everybody else feels about your boundaries. If somebody requires a paragraph to respect your no, they were never honoring your boundaries. They were negotiating them. Negotiation drains peace. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't communicate with love. You absolutely can. But love does not require self-betrayal. You can be kind and firm at the same time. You can be warm and unwavering at the same time. You can care about someone and still say, that don't work for me. Y'all know I say it all the time. I love you. I want you to eat, but I will not be serving you another meal at this table. See, discipline is what keeps you from folding when that guilt shows up. Because the guilt will show up. It's going to whisper that you're being difficult. You're being dramatic. You're overreacting. But discipline will answer back every time. Nah, I'm being consistent. Because we know that consistency builds internal safety. So when you say no and you mean it, you teach yourself that your needs matter. When you hold on to your boundary without spiraling, you prove to yourself that you are safe to advocate for. And that changes how you show up everywhere. At work, in relationships, in your family, with your family, right? In friendships. You stop volunteering yourself for exhaustion. You stop signing up for resentment. You stop sacrificing your peace to avoid the awkwardness. Because let's be honest, sometimes we say yes to avoid a 5-minute uncomfortable conversation and end up in 5 months of stress. So we got to understand and normalize that peace requires short-term discomfort in order to have long-term stability. Peace requires short-term dysfunction for long-term stability. I'm going to add that to the chat because I really believe that that is a quote for you to live by. I think that that is something that everybody needs to know. Peace requires short-term discomfort for long-term stability. Z, make sure you write that down. Because that's discipline. The discipline to understand that it is not your job to rescue everybody. If Z, look at it like this. Because you said that, let me scroll back. Z said, I hate disappointing others. So if you set a boundary, if you speak up for yourself and say, I don't have the capacity for that. No, coach, I can't do that. Not that you need to give a reason behind it, but let's say you say, no, coach, I can't do that. I don't have the capacity for that today. And then I start to challenge you, right? I start to say, well, why? You did it yesterday. Oh, well, I was really looking forward to you doing this. Oh, I really needed your help. So now I tell you, well, I'm disappointed that you can't do it because you did it yesterday. You've been doing it, right? So now I'm disappointed. And me vocalizing my disappointment is also me telling you that I don't really care how you feel about it. I don't really care what you have the capacity for. I don't care that what I'm asking you to do is costing you to sacrifice yourself to, abandon what you want, what you need, what you desire. I don't care. So a lot of times, if you think about it, Z, that disappointment that you're trying to avoid only leaves you disappointed in the end. And why is it that that person deserves to be happy, right? And you sitting here miserable because now you've committed to something that you didn't want to do in the first place. You knew you didn't have the capacity for in the first place. But because we want to make things easier for other people to digest, we choke. So again, that's where that discipline comes in. And that's something that you have to practice again and again. The discipline of not rescuing everybody else. The discipline of not overcommitting. The discipline of not shrinking to stay light. You don't need a paragraph to validate your no. Your peace is reason enough. That's kind of why I made my little rant post yesterday. To get people to understand, like, I said no. Asked and answered. I don't have to validate why I said no. I don't have to explain why I do what I do. My peace is reason enough. And so when you start to master that level of discipline, you stop negotiating your well-being. And y'all, I wasn't always like this. I used to negotiate my boundaries. But because I kept showing up intentionally, wanting more for myself, and I got tired of being tired. Like, anybody else ever been sick and tired of being sick and tired? At some point, you have to stop negotiating your well-being and start protecting it. Because that protection is how your peace stays intact. And, you know, if we're being honest, the real saboteur is inconsistency. Peace and blessings, Chandra. Welcome in, beautiful. I'm going to try to say this part as gently as possible. And I know we're running a little over, but we have to talk about inconsistency. Because sometimes it's not the chaos that ruins our peace. It is our own inconsistency. We set a boundary, then we bend it. We make the decision, then revisit it. We say we're done, then we check in just to see. I just want to take a little peek. I want a little look. We say we're healing, and then we go back to entertaining what hurt us in the first place. And then we wonder why peace won't stay. Peace cannot stabilize in an inconsistent environment. Not externally, and definitely not internally. Inconsistency sends mixed signals to your nervous system. One day you're strong, next day you're spiraling. One day you're clear, next day you're reconsidering what you already prayed about. And your body doesn't know what to trust. That's why discipline matters. Avita said, I got to stop this foolishness. Listen. And that was step one right there, Avita. You recognize, hey, you know what? That's me. She talking to me. Let me get my shit together. That's step one. Kudos to you. This is why discipline matters, right? Because discipline creates predictability, and predictability creates safety. When you are consistent, you become safe to yourself. You trust that if something feels off, you'll address it. If someone crosses a line, you won't ignore it. If a habit drains you, you'll simply adjust it. If you said no, you'll stay no. But when you're inconsistent, you abandon yourself in small ways. But those small self-abandonments add up. You ignore the tone, excuse the behavior, you silence your intuition or override your exhaustion. You downplay every single red flag. Not because you're weak, because you're uncomfortable with finality. Consistency requires closure. And closure requires you to accept reality without rewriting it. Sometimes we revisit chaos, not because we want drama, but because we want a different ending. We want them to finally show up right. We want the apology. We want the clarity. We want the validation. We want the change. But discipline says if it wasn't healthy then, it's not healthy now. And that can feel harsh, especially if you've spent like a significant amount of time in that situation. It can feel harsh, but it's actually freeing. Inconsistency keeps you emotionally tethered to what already showed you its nature. Remember how I said when people show you who they are, believe them. But if you are a person who is inconsistent, you're going to keep waiting for people to show you who they are. Consistency says that I don't need another lesson from that. I don't need more proof. I got all the receipts that I need. I don't need nothing else. I don't need one more conversation to confirm what I already knew. I don't need to allow you to hurt me again just so I can realize this wound actually hurts. And let's go ahead and talk about this too. Sometimes we blame the situation when really we're struggling with our own follow through. I had to learn that I was the common denominator in every single problem that I had. I jumped from one toxic relationship into another toxic relationship and to even a more toxic relationship. I used to say that I want peace, but I kept feeding habits that disrupted my peace. And so one day I just woke up and I said, you know what? It's me, Lord. It's me. I'm the problem. I'm not to blame for what they did to me, but I am the reason they were able to do what they did to me. So at some point, you have to realize that you are the common denominator, and you have to give yourself the attention that you deserve. You can't keep saying that you want peace, but keep feeding habits that disrupt it. And just think about it. We stay up too late. We overshare, overcommit. We re-engage. We re-explain. We re-enter. Not realizing that re-entry is the enemy of peace. Have an amazing day, beautiful. Thank you for being here. You have to start to understand that if you left for a reason, if you severed a relationship for a reason, if you left the group chat for a reason, if you checked out of the community for a reason, honor that reason. Stand on it. Consistency is what honors the lesson. You don't need a dramatic transformation. You need disciplined repetition. Small, steady decisions. Choosing not to text them back. Choosing not to engage. Choosing not to explain. Choosing not to return. Every time you choose consistently, you strengthen your peace muscle. And all of a sudden, peace becomes less fragile to you. It becomes anchored. Inconsistency makes peace feel temporary. So if peace keeps slipping through your fingers, I need you to ask yourself, am I being disrupted or am I being inconsistent? Because once you master consistency, peace stops feeling like something that you're chasing and it starts feeling like something that you're living. So let's wrap this up, y'all, because we didn't been over our time. Let's go ahead and bring it all home. Discipline is not about control. It is about self-respect and motion. It is the evidence that you believe that you deserve better, not just in theory, but in practice. Anybody can say, I deserve peace, but discipline is how you prove it to yourself. Discipline is keeping the promise that you made in your lowest moment. It's remembering how exhausted you were, how anxious you were, how drained you felt, how disappointed you were in yourself for tolerating what you knew shouldn't have been. And it's saying that we're not going back there. I'm not doing this again. I'm not repeating that same lesson again. That's self-respect. It's not loud. It's not performative. It's not announced. It's just who I am. It's just lived. Self-respect in motion looks like leaving when it's time, ending conversations that turn unhealthy, choosing water over wine when you're emotional, turning your phone off instead of spiraling out, sticking to the budget, saying no without guilt, or walking away without needing to have the last word. It's not dramatic. It's discipline. And discipline builds dignity. You will start to move differently when you respect yourself. You don't beg. You don't chase. You don't overextend to prove your value. You don't negotiate your non-negotiables. Because self-respect changes your posture. Now you're not frantic. You're not reactive. You're not seeking permission. You're simply aligned. And alignment feels calm. Self-respect means you stop betraying yourself in small ways. You stop laughing at things that hurt you, agreeing to things that exhaust you, silencing your intuition, ignoring your body's signals, pretending something doesn't bother you when clearly it does. Shadow, welcome in. How you been? Elevated awakenings to you. Discipline is what closes the gap between what you know and what you do. That gap is where peace leaks out, right? When your actions don't match your standards, you feel this internal tension. That stability, right? When your actions align with your standards, that is internal stability. And that stability is peace. Self-respect sometimes looks boring from the outside. It looks like staying home. It looks like declining invitations. It looks like unfollowing. It looks like responding or not responding. It looks like choosing solitude over situationships. But boring peace is better than excited anxiety. Discipline may not give you that instant gratification, but it gives you long-term stability. It builds a life where you don't have to recover every single weekend, where you don't have to consistently reset your nervous system, where you don't have to apologize for emotional explosions. That is maturity. That is growth. That is self-respect in motion. And when you operate from that place, I promise you something shifts. You don't chase peace anymore. You simply maintain it because you've built good habits that protect it. You built boundaries that defend it. You just did. You just asked me a question. You've built standards that sustain it. And before you asked your question, Shadow, let me just tell you, in this space, I protect my peace. So please don't disrupt it. I hope it's a valid question. Discipline is not about restriction. It is reinforcement. It reinforces who you said you were becoming. Why is that relevant? I mean, it's not like I care, but why is that relevant? It reinforces your healing, your worth. And when that discipline becomes natural, peace becomes permanent. Now, family, today, the unmitigated gall of it all. Today, we talked about discipline. We talked about accountability. Not I was about to read your comment, Karen. Girl, bye. My husband liked me too. Okay. Okay, listen, y'all. Let's wrap it up. We talked about discipline. We talked about accountability. We talked about consistency. We talked about emotional regulation. We've talked about saying no without a paragraph. And if you've been listening closely, you'll probably realize something today. You probably realize that peace isn't fragile. Our participation in peace is. We slowly compromise it. Oh, well, Melanie, the good thing is you can always go back and watch the replay. So perfect timing, and you'll have access to the replay. So when your internet connection gets better, you can come back. But I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you're here. So again, peace doesn't randomly disappear. We slowly compromise our peace. One, just this once. One, maybe it'll be different. One, it's not that serious. One, I don't want to be difficult. And before we know it, we're back in patterns we promised that we outgrew. But here's the empowering truth. You are not powerless in your peace. I'm going to say it again. You are not powerless in your peace. You are not at the mercy of other people's behavior. You are not stuck in cycles that you've already outgrown. You are not obligated to entertain what disturbs you. Y'all see how we just did that in real time? I'm not obligated to entertain what disrupts my peace. Because a DOP could never. You have more control than you think. And I'm not talking about control over people. I'm talking about over participation. You get to control what you entertain, what you participate in. And that's the shift. Peace isn't about controlling the environment. It's about controlling your engagement. It doesn't ask, or how do I want to put this? It's about asking yourself daily, does this align with the life that I want? And if the answer is no, discipline steps in, not to shame you. Discipline says we don't have to react. Anybody who's a content creator, y'all know there comes that moment where a disruptor, that's what we call DOPs, disruptors of peace, right? The DOPs will show up and they'll try to poke the bear. We don't have to react. We don't have to prove. We don't have to re-enter. We don't have to rescue. We don't have to explain. We can choose calm. We can choose clarity. We can choose consistency. And I want to make sure that I say this gently, especially to those of you who are doing the work quietly. I just want you to know today that you are allowed to outgrow chaos. You are allowed to stop over functioning. You are allowed to release people who only know how to relate to the unhealed version of you. You are allowed to protect your peace without feeling guilty. But I need you to understand that protecting it requires discipline. It's going to require that you stay consistent when you're lonely, that you stay grounded when you're triggered, that you stay clear when somebody's trying to confuse you, that you say no when guilt knocks at the door. Every single time that you choose discipline over impulse, you strengthen your peace. Every time you choose regulation over reaction, you strengthen your peace. Every time you choose alignment over attention, guess what? You strengthen your peace. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to realize that you're not chasing peace anymore. You're living it. Not because life is perfect, because your habits are now aligned. Your boundaries are intact. Your self-respect is practiced. Your accountability is active and activated. Peace is not passive. It is practiced. It is protected. It is participated in. So before you log off today, I have one final question. And I want you to sit with this. Ask yourself, where am I asking for peace, but avoiding the discipline to sustain it? Where am I asking for peace, but avoiding the discipline that sustains it? And don't answer it defensively. Answer it honestly. That's where your growth lies. I just want you guys to remember that you don't have to hustle for peace. You don't have to perform peace. You don't have to beg for peace. But you do have to practice it. You have to release what disrupts you. And you have to move with intention. Now, if this episode spoke to you today, go ahead and drop some green hearts in the chat. You know, that is our way of saying I am healing, I am growing, and today I'm showing up for me. Now, before we end, let me leave you all with a little love and light. As always, I encourage you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And know that here at the Self-Care Club, You will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So don't be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life, and I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and yes, on purpose, filled with purpose. This has been another Room to Breathe podcast, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Remember, tomorrow is Friday, so there will be no TikTok. You must join us on YouTube tomorrow for another Feature Friday podcast. Tomorrow, yeah, we have our first couple on the show. Um, be sure to join us tomorrow on YouTube, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys are gonna love the Rich Refuge. Like you're gonna absolutely love Gil and Renee. I know I do. It is going to be such a good conversation, and something that I think is just gonna be right on time for all of us. So again, be sure to join us tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube at the Room to Breathe Project. And for everybody else, I will see you back on Monday. Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
Me, I